It's 11:47 p.m. You're lying in bed. The lights are off. Your body is exhausted. Your eyes are heavy, and by every measure, you should already be asleep. But your mind just opened a courtroom. You're replaying a conversation with your boss from 3 days ago. Except this time, you have the perfect comeback. Then, you're arguing with a friend who hurt your feelings back in 2019. Then, you're defending yourself to someone who hasn't even said anything to you yet. None of it is real. And yet your jaw is tight, your heart rate has picked up, and you're gripping the edge of the blanket like you're actually in the room. If this sounds familiar, you're not broken, and you're not alone. Almost nobody admits this out loud because on the surface it sounds a little embarrassing, arguing with people who aren't there, winning conversations that never happened. But there's a real psychological explanation for it. And once you understand what your brain is actually doing, you can finally start working with it instead of lying there feeling like your own mind is against you. I'm going to break down exactly why this happens, what it reveals about the kind of person you are, when it crosses from normal into something worth paying attention to, and most importantly, how to actually close these loops so you can get your nights back. This experience has a real name in psychology. Researchers call it perseverative cognition, a pattern of repetitive, intrusive thinking that keeps your mind locked onto a situation long after the situation itself has ended. Your imaginary arguments are one specific flavor of this, a kind of unscripted rehearsal your brain runs when it feels like something was left unresolved. There's actually a phrase for the sharpest version of this feeling. The French call it l'esprit de l'escalier, literally, staircase wit. It describes the perfect comeback you think of only after you've already left the room, already walked down the stairs, already lost your window to say it. Your brain hates that timing gap. It doesn't like unfinished business, and it especially doesn't like feeling like it lost. So instead of letting the moment go, it keeps working the problem in the background long after the real conversation is over. During the day, this rarely surfaces because your attention is somewhere else. Emails, traffic, deadlines, other people's demands on your time. But at night, when the noise finally stops and there's nothing left to distract you, your mind goes looking for whatever it didn't finish processing, and more often than not, it drags an old conversation right into bed with you. So why does your brain do this so persistently? There are 4 psychological mechanisms working together here. Reason 1. Unfinished business feels dangerous to your brain. The first is what's known as the Zeigarnik effect, a well-documented finding in psychology showing that people remember and ruminate on incomplete tasks far more intensely than tasks that were actually finished. An argument that ended awkwardly, a sentence you didn't get to say. Your brain files these as open loops. And open loops are noisy. They generate a low hum of tension that doesn't quiet down until, in your mind, the loop gets closed. Reason 2. You're rehearsing safety, not revenge. The second is that you're not actually rehearsing revenge, even though it might feel that way. You're rehearsing safety. Underneath the imagined comeback, your brain is quietly practicing what to say if that situation happens again, so next time you're not caught off guard. It's the same mechanism athletes use to visualize a play before stepping onto the field. Except your version runs on autopilot, usually aimed at conflict, and it fires off right when you're trying to fall asleep. Reason 3. Silence is when suppressed emotion gets loud. The third mechanism is simpler and a little more uncomfortable to sit with. Silence is when suppressed emotion finally gets loud. During the day, you're distracted enough to keep certain feelings at arm's length. The embarrassment of being talked over in a meeting. The sting of being dismissed by someone you respect. At night, once the distractions disappear, those feelings finally have room to surface. Your imaginary arguments are very often just delayed emotional processing, showing up at the only hour your schedule left open for it. Reason 4. You're protecting your self-image. And the fourth mechanism is about protecting how you see yourself. Psychologists call this self-verification, a deep, mostly unconscious need to see yourself as competent, respected, and fundamentally in the right. When a real interaction left you feeling small or misunderstood, your mind stages a private replay where you say the smart thing, where you set the boundary clearly, where you finally get the apology you never received. This isn't vanity. It's your brain trying to repair a version of your self-image that got dinged earlier in the day. Here's the part most people get completely wrong about this pattern. Doing this occasionally doesn't mean something is broken in you. In most cases, it actually means the opposite. People who mentally rehearse conversations tend to be highly self-aware, conscientious, and unusually sensitive to how their words land on other people. You replay the moment because you genuinely care about getting it right, not just for your own sake, but for the relationship itself. Research on rumination consistently links this exact pattern to people who score higher on conscientiousness and empathy than the general population. In a strange way, the habit that keeps you up at night is often evidence of how much you care about the people in your life. The habit only becomes a real problem when the loop never actually closes. When the same argument keeps replaying night after night, week after week, long after any reasonable amount of processing should have finished. That's the line between healthy emotional processing and a pattern that starts quietly eating into your sleep, your mood the next morning, and your ability to stay present in the conversations that are actually happening around you right now. So how do you know which side of that line you're on? Ask yourself 3 honest questions. First, does the scenario fade within a day or two? Or does the exact same conversation keep returning night after night, almost word for word? Second, are you rehearsing to find closure, or are you scripting an increasingly elaborate version of revenge with no real resolution in sight? And third, is this actually costing you sleep on more nights than not? If you answered yes to the second half of 2 or more of those questions, this has likely shifted from your brain quietly processing a moment into your brain actively avoiding one. You're using the fantasy of a perfect comeback as a substitute for actually addressing what happened. Whether that means setting a real boundary, having an honest conversation, or consciously deciding to let the whole thing go. The good news is that you're not stuck simply enduring this every night. The goal isn't to force your brain to stop caring because that part of you is actually a strength. The goal is to give that unfinished business somewhere real to go, so it stops needing your bedtime as its only available outlet. Technique 1. The written closing statement. The first technique is what you might call the written closing statement. Before bed, take 2 or 3 minutes and actually write down, on paper, not on your phone, exactly what you wish you'd said in that moment. This works because the Zeigarnik effect weakens the instant a loop gets recorded somewhere outside your own head. Your mind stops standing guard over the thought once it knows, on some level, that the thought has been saved. Technique 2. Name it out loud. The second technique is simply naming the pattern out loud, the moment you notice it starting. As soon as you catch yourself mid-argument with someone who isn't in the room, quietly say to yourself, "I'm rehearsing." That small act of naming activates the more rational, observing part of your brain and interrupts the automatic loop, a technique psychologists sometimes call cognitive labeling, and it's remarkably effective for something so simple. Technique 3. Schedule the worry. The third technique is scheduling the worry earlier in your day. Set aside a fixed 10-minute window in the early evening, not in bed, where you're fully allowed to think the situation through, replay it, even plan what you'd say differently next time. When the thought tries to resurface later that night, you can honestly tell your mind, "We already covered this. You had your time. This one's closed for tonight." None of these techniques erase the habit overnight, and that's okay. You're not trying to become a person who never thinks about anything difficult before bed. You're just giving your mind a real exit ramp instead of the same courtroom loop it's been running on for years. Your brain isn't malfunctioning when it does this. It's a highly tuned system, trying to protect your sense of self and finish something that genuinely felt unfinished. The problem was never that you cared enough to replay the moment. The problem is that you never gave that care anywhere else to go. Until now. If tonight's the night you finally close one of those loops, tell me in the comments. What's the conversation your brain keeps replaying? You might be surprised how many other people are running the exact same script. If this helped you understand your own mind a little better, subscribe to the Unbecoming. Every week, we break down one hidden pattern quietly shaping how you think, feel, and show up in your own life.